Let's break down the hottest topics in the organic produce industry today. The role of organic food in online shopping. The narrowing price gap between organics and conventional. Good food labels. Are there too many? How organic produce is shaping store formats. Is the industry on the cusp of greatness or trouble? You are about to hear from three of the biggest decision makers in their own words on key issues and opportunities right now in the industry. Roger Harkrider, Director of Produce for Meijer. Ron McCormick, the Senior Director of Global Produce Sourcing at Walmart. And Randy Riley, the Director of Produce Merchandising for Kroger. Real talk from those in the know. Co-founder of the Organic Produce Network, Tonya Antle, leads the discussion. This is Retailer Roundtable.
Welcome to the Retail Roundtable portion of our discussion. All of us in this audience have such a tremendous opportunity and responsibility for feeding tens of millions of consumers each week with fresh organic produce. How lucky are we to have three thought leaders to help us learn more about consumer preferences and retailers' preferences on what they are desiring from us. So let's go ahead and get started. Gentlemen, let's kick it off with, tell us a little bit about your companies, your personal responsibilities for the companies, and your current percentages of organic produce right now in your department. Go ahead, Ron.
Hi, I'm Ron McCormick. Good morning from Walmart stores. I'm the Senior Director for Global Produce Sourcing, and I have responsibility for offices in Michigan, North Carolina, and Texas. And our team primarily works on sourcing of local produce and organic produce, and then we also dabble in our business of reusable plastic containers. At Walmart, we believe that providing high-quality, fresh, USDA-certified organics is important to our future and our growth, especially as in a world that's changing as rapid as ours is. So we spend a lot of our time devoted to understanding the customer and how we can service that need better. It's one of our fastest growing categories, which we're excited about, and run between 7 and 8% of our total produce sales, and certainly as one of the growth categories, a really important focus for us going forward.
Hey, good morning. I'm Randy Riley. I'm with the Kroger Company, Director of Produce Merchandising and Procurement. A little personal fact about mine is I have 7 daughters, and from what I understand, I will live till I'm 110 years old. Good shape. No, that's funny. Hey, just real quick, I want to educate and inform everybody in the room about the Kroger Company and how we view the customer. If you think about all the several data points that's available to us, I think it's safe to say that we are the largest traditional grocer when it comes to organic produce. Many of you recall a press release we issued earlier this year talking about a milestone that we achieved as an organization through great partnership of everybody sitting in this room. And that was clipping the $1 billion mark in fresh organic fruit and vegetable sales in 2017. So we're very proud of that. And that translates into about 40% market share of fresh organic produce in the markets in which we operate. And we're very, very proud of that. And I appreciate Jeff and everything he's saying about in-store brands. When you think about our Simple Truth brand, a $2 billion category for us. And when you look at the share of wallet, this is our most proud data point. Kroger customers that shop in our stores, 60% of their wallet on organic fresh produce is spent in our stores. And we know that all of that comes from the fact that we try to listen very carefully to our customer. And they're telling us that things like transparency, inspiration, value, and consistency is important to them. So we're including all those things in our strategies to try to deliver upon that.
Roger.
Good. Well, good morning. I'm Roger Harkrider. I'm Director of Produce at Meijer. Recently transitioned there, which I think we may chat about more later, but Meijer, for many of you who don't know Meijer is a family-owned and operated retail grocery company, a supercenter, that was founded in 1934 in Greenville, Michigan. Today we're headquartered in Walker, Michigan, which is just outside of Grand Rapids. And I was talking to Tonya a little bit earlier saying, yeah, lucky me, I get to move to Grand Rapids, Michigan that happens to be the third hottest housing market in the U.S. right now.
Unbelievable.
Which is actually a good thing if you think about it. The great opportunity to grow the business in that state. Great formats. We build big stores. Built some of the first super centers in the United States in the 60s, and dedicated to building big produce departments. The natural fit for me in joining Myers was their commitment to the customer. And Fred Meyer always said that the customers, they don't need us, we need them, and it's true. And I think that's the value, foundational values that Meyer operates off of today, is that we need that customer, and in everything that we do, we're going to focus on that customer. Organics is a good space for us today. Percentages of business vary by commodity to commodity. I think the big opportunity here is that we've got a lot of room for growth in the 240 stores in 6 states that we operate in.
Thank you. So Ron, we've been talking about how long you've been in organics. I think we talked about 2001, I think was our entry point. Tell me how it's changed for you. How has organic produce evolved?
Well, since I'm older than dirt, I've seen a lot of changes. And I want to thank you too, Tanya, because you've been one of our inspirations and our teachers for a long time. No, you were just a child when we first started working together on organics. But I think in the 23 years I've been at Walmart, we've seen this. We're into kind of the third major wave of growth in organics. The first 2 waves were impressive and had positive effects, but unfortunately, after those big surges, we saw dramatic drop-offs in consumption and sales at retail. I think this third wave that we're in now, I believe it is something dramatically different. I think the first wave was kind of driven by retailers competing and wanting to be the first to do something new. The second wave, after we'd kind of gotten nervous with throwaways and wasn't as profitable and demand didn't go where we thought it was, we had a lot of experts telling us that as retailers we needed to get back into organics and go big, because now the time had arrived. And we did it again, and as retailers across the U.S., and had somewhat the same effect, another drop-off, not as dramatic as first, but a significant drop-off. I think there's some dramatic differences in the marketplace today that will mean this third wave is very different than those kind of temporary trend waves. I think one of the big differences is all the great work that growers have done on organics. Organics, when I started in the business, when you looked at an organic product and a conventional product, it was dramatic difference. And you had to believe, you had to really be passionate about organics to make the choice. So today, that's far less true. The organic produce is every year, every month, better quality, better consistency, better flavor. So we've passed that obstacle. The other big difference is that the demand today is customer-driven demand that's sustainable. It's coming from people that are wanting the product, and by the virtue of social media, people that are active in social media, they prefer to hear the recommendations from their friends and family and influencers, not from experts or from retailers. So it's not about running an ad, it's about finding out what your friends are doing. So there's a buzz and a conversation and an education in social media that's driving consumption. And because the new millennial customer is really interested in, they're willing to spend money for things that matter, we have customers that are driven in a different way to go to stores. And fortunately, they can go to many retailers now and find a good selection of organics. So it's a different world today.
That's right. So Randy, on a different note, as organics continue to grow at Kroger, tell me what's happening, because many of these farmers here in this audience are both conventional farmers as well as organic farmers as they're converting more land. What's happening to the conventional side in your department?
Yeah, Tonya, it's a great question. So I would tell you that it's not exclusive, that the two work in concert with one another. And I know that's been a fear with a lot of folks within our industry, that one may be exclusive to the other, but all the data points that we're looking at tell us that that is not true.
So all boats are rising?
Correct.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think, there are certain items that we in the past have made the election to cut out, whether it's conventional, cutting out the organic counterpart, or vice versa. But the data is clearly telling us that the customer is looking to have the choice of both. So that's why we talk about concert. They work in concert with one another. Let's build strategies around both of them to articulate to the customer what we're trying to do on a price point standpoint and a promotional standpoint.
Great. Roger, you've been a regional player, you've moved from Texas, and now you're up in the upper Midwest. Talk about consumer preferences. Have you seen a shift? Do you see that there's two different types of consumers, or are we all the same, wanting the same desires? What have you seen?
Well, the biggest thing I've seen is the weather's a bit different up in Michigan than in Texas. It's funny to say that, but it was a big learning for me as well that, in Texas, summer starts about Easter, and up in the Midwest, Memorial Day is when summer starts, really. And that changes a lot of cooking habits, buying habits, eating habits. So that was somewhat of a, I guess, naive thing that I didn't understand living in Texas all my life. But really, at the end of the day, the most amazing thing is that I think customers are the same everywhere. They really want great product. They want product that tastes good. They want things that are affordable. And I think that without using the words blue zone, I think many more, right? There's an emerging population at all levels as we get older. I'm wanting to look at things different and eat more healthy. But I think that every customer segment is in that same place. And Ron, you touched on the millennials. I think that the organic space is such a great opportunity for us with this emerging customer, and as they get established in what they're doing and have income and they're willing to spend that money. Right now, I think that with sustainability and organics and the position on GMOs, that millennial customer is really ripe, and we've got a huge opportunity ahead of us.
All right. Okay, so just big audacious, what's been the big home run for all of you in the organic category? Three-part question. What hasn't worked, and what's something that's missing in your portfolio? What are you going to look for today with these 130 exhibitors that are out there?
So I think what's really worked for us well is a segregated wet veg or a refrigerated vegetable section. It's real, especially I think for our customers, it's helped them understand that we are committed to organics. So that's been a big home run for us. It was mentioned a little earlier, but one of the surprises to us too is we thought that there were a large number of items for which we might just be able to carry the organic version and simplify the process for the customer. But what our customers told us was they wanted that reassurance that they could make the judgment of what the price gap was. They wanted to have that bellwether of conventional to be able to compare against the organics. So when those items that we tried, we actually lost sales. When we put the option back in the customer's hands, they improved. And what are we looking for, or what are we always looking for relative to organics? I think it would be berries, and more berries. Always trying to find.
Okay, berry growers, you heard it.
Always trying to find enough organic berries.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how there's so many similarities across companies having the same type of experience. But from an assortment perspective, I think we try to know our customers the best that we can.
Yes.
And we've seen the home runs or the successes that you alluded to in the same type of assortment commodities as Ron was mentioning, wet veg, the leaf and the greens and things of that nature. I'll tell you what we are really intrigued about moving forward, and it's all the high flavor fruit phenomenon that exists in the conventional world. We know that it exists in the organic world, and how do we tell that story better to the customer so that they recognize that we offer that assortment at an advantageous price to build both commodities. Yeah.
Roger?
Yeah, I'll take a minute to applaud all of you here in the room that are growing in the supply chain, because I think that has been the biggest win over the past 20 years is the continuity and surety of supply. How much easier it is now to offer organics and carve out the segregated sections for organics because you've made that available to us. That, along with the quality improvements that continue to be made, that is what is going to keep the customer in that space, right? Having them being able to have the consistency of finding what they want, having great flavor, great tasting product that's going to perform as well as they're used to in the conventional space. That has been huge, and I'll second what Ron said, and go back to we're all the same everywhere, more berries, and help us keep that supply line full.
Let me add one more thing to that, Tonya. So, it's interesting. Your question is what are we looking for when the showroom opens and we walk up and down the aisles? And I would tell you that may be where it starts. But the challenge to the group here is how do we have a bigger and more broader discussion around that? What are you growing? What are you seeing from a perspective of a grower or supplier? How do we sit down and have a big discussion about that? And how do we push both of our agendas to grow each other's dominance together? That's our objective.
Okay, so we're talking about all these different commodities. One of the things that we've seen in the vegetable row crop, especially commodities, is for the first time ever in this last year, we had an oversupply, and our prices fell to below conventional. So Ron, to that point, how does that affect retail price point, and is there a consumer issue if organic is cheaper than conventional? Does that raise questions to the quality level, or is that suspect? Talk about that pricing point.
I think there's definitely an issue when you end up in those circumstances where you end up having lower prices on organics. But I think the customer's always happy to get a low price. So I don't think it's an issue. I think the opportunity is for the organic growers and the retailers to work together in a longer-term vision and planning together more, so that you can take that opportunity of low cost and spread it out over a length of time. So the customer may not see such an incredibly low price during times of glut, then going back up to a regular organic price. Rather, take that opportunity to spread it out and bring more people, because one of the nice things about the industry right now is that we're having a tremendous amount of trial. So the occasional customer is there for the taking. We just have to work together to lower those barriers so that more people become common purchasers of organics or everyday purchasers of organics.
Okay, so we're going to do just a really quick, before we go into our e-commerce discussion, we're going to have a little quick lightning round. So just top of mind, okay, because I didn't tell you about this before. So in the next 5 years, what % of your total produce is going to be organic? Roger.
15%.
I would say north of that.
Ron?
So
That's
12,
okay, I said quick
north
answer.
of 15, I would say 17.
Can I change my answer?
And mine stays the same.
Okay, Ron.
We're all saying that's going to grow.
Ron, you said segregated wet veg, so fruit, integrated or segregated?
I think we would love to see it segregated.
So you're segregated.
We're not today, but we would
Okay.
love it for it to be.
Okay.
We're testing integration. We're seeing integration all throughout the center store, and we know that it resonates with the customer. I appreciated Jeff's comments earlier. As you go up and down the grocery aisle, customers expect that from it. We have to deliver.
Okay.
An integrated, segregated plan.
You are so good.
Good strategy.
Okay, so let's talk about e-commerce. We had a session on it this morning. Talk about how that segment plays within the organic section. And do you see this changing the footprint of brick and mortar? Do you see it as a win-win? I mean, how do you guys address it? Because you're all three playing in that format. So let's start with you, Roger.
Brick and mortar is going to continue to change, right? It has continued to change. It's going to continue to evolve as the customer evolves. I think we all have a lot to learn on the retail side about what that's going to look like in the future. We're testing new formats just like Kroger and Walmart as well. I'll go back to the comment that I made about the continuity of supply, how much it's improved and how much we need to continue to work in that space. Because in one of the sessions, you heard the Instacart gentleman saying that, yeah, when a customer can't get something online, it gets a little frustrating. At least when they're in the store and they can't get it, they have other options to at least choose from at that point. So having the surety of supply is going to be key with continuing to build that customer habit within that e-commerce space. And whether that's a home delivery service, or whether that's a curbside, or the new Meijer shop and scan where you can shop the store and scan your groceries and bag them and then just scan your phone and pay and walk out. The customer, it's going to continue to change, but again, I'm going to go back to just having that continuity of supply is going to be key for all of us to grow the business.
Randy?
Yeah, so I think we've all worked hard to build a reputation of good quality, good specs, good standards, and the customer expects us to deliver on that regardless of where they want to shop, whether it's online, whether it's brick and mortar, or any other alternative stream. So what we're seeing is the Kroger produce customer is the very best and finest customer we have in the store. So we know that we have to deliver differently online than the other areas of the store. And that comes through hard work. I mean, we're quick to put a full assortment of our department online as quick as possible, but we know that it didn't translate great to the customer at first, so there's a lot more work to that. I'll tell you that our digital strategy moving forward is less about what we've done in the recent past, but more about what we need to do in the future, because this competitive landscape changes quickly in digital, and it's scary, but also exciting.
Thank you.
And I think for us, we passionately believe that our future lies in being able to offer the customer what they want, when they want it, where they want it, and let them buy it how they want to. So e-commerce has been good for us. We see it as a major part of our future. One of the things exciting for us about organics is that our online grocery pickup service, that customer skews heavily. We sell far more organic product to that customer than the overall or the store in which they're picking it up. And we also see that customer, actually, it seems counterintuitive, but they're actually buying organics more frequently, even though it's a matter of driving up and picking up.
Is this that new millennial mom that's time pressed, that wants that delivery? If we identify, I mean, you have great data too, Randy. Is it, where are you seeing that coming from?
I think that's definitely the core of a lot of the huge growth. And also, I think just that sense that that customer is more friendly with online and e-commerce. So it's a great service for someone with a car full of young kids rather than having to lug them into the store. It's a great opportunity to be efficient, pull up, the groceries are ready for you in your home without the efforts. So I think that, and it certainly skews towards small, new families, young families.
So
Yeah,
to
it's
that
interesting.
point, same thing, Randy, because when you go in the baby food section, and I don't know if you've noticed lately, it's almost 100% organic. That millennial shopper becomes that future shopper. Do you see the same thing?
Absolutely. I think there was an initial apprehension when the digital space started to grow that the produce consumer wouldn't engage digitally because of the whole I want to touch it, taste it, smell it, feel it. But that is far beyond what we're seeing. What we're seeing is that organics, to what Ron was saying, is as a percent of the total volume that's gone through digitally, is higher than what we're seeing in brick and mortar.
Right.
And the total percent to total business is better.
So Roger, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about local versus organic. We look at local being very, hot and popular, especially during the summer months. But when it comes to, organic, we are the only, government regulated, USDA certified. Jeff mentioned the USDA seal. So how do you balance that, and, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think what it boils down to is, we're going to offer the customer what they want, and like Ron said, what they want, and give it to them how they want to shop for it and when they want it. Meijer has, is a local company, right, locally grown, and operating in those 6 states, has always dealt with a tremendous amount of local growers, has always offered it. Michigan is a big growing area for many commodities. So again, we'll continue to offer that. I think that balancing what the customer wants, making sure that, in every segment, organic, local, even, every, food processor that we have, ensuring that the food supply is safe in all of those segments, I think is key. And working with everyone in that space to share information, to share the best ideas, even us here today, sharing best practices, because the weakest link in any chain, regardless of who it is, we're all going to be impacted. It's going to slow us down, and so we're going to continue to focus on both and lean into both heavily, but with the same diligence of protecting our customers that we always have had and keeping them number one.
Thank you. So Randy, organic integrity means a lot to us that, work so hard to get the USDA seal. And we're hearing so many new labels now, regenerative, natural, sustainable, non-GMO. Talk about all that. How do we continue to help the consumer understand the value of the strength of organic, certified organic, USDA seal, and all this, I think it's confusing the consumer, and I would love to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think we agree. We have a lot of regard for the certification process, especially the USDA or certified organic, just because it resonates so much with the mass customers that purchase in it. The problem, I think, is that I don't think the average consumer really understands the rigorous standards that are in place with organics, both from a supplier standpoint and from a retailer standpoint. And I'm confident that a great many of customers just don't understand the supply chain challenges,
Right.
the handling, the packaging, the care, all throughout the supply chain. So when you couple that with other data points, we know that customers want transparency. So that's the answer to the question is, how do we become more transparent to the customer from seed to store, that whole supply chain, and how it is truly different than all the other labels that
Right.
exist out there.
And to that point, so Ron, non-GMO. Organic is non-GMO. Do consumers really understand that? Have we done a good enough job? Should we do more to communicate that? There aren't that many GMO products even on the market, so I think there's confusion with that as well. So how does the organic community address non-GMO?
So I actually believe I think we should be part of the discussion and part of the education. But I think by and large, there's not a big win for us to try to make an association between non-GMO and organics. There tends to be a little bit of confusion in customers on organics and what they are, though that's falling by the wayside rapidly. But I don't think we benefit by, GMOs are even more confusing for customers. So I don't think there's a win by associating the two. There's not a halo that you get there. So I think it's more about talking about what organics mean rather than trying to connect it to a lot of other free of kind of conversations.
Roger, do you want to add to that?
I think as an industry for years we've struggled just in produce with a common message. And I think that if you boil it down now into the organic space, it gets even a little bit more complex.
Right.
But again, I think it goes back to collaboration, us working together to figure out how we together address that with our own individual consumer bases. But I do think there is some education to be done. But to Ron's point, we have to be very cautious and craft our message in a way that protects our entire business.
So before we open it up to the audience for questions, you all have an opportunity. You're sitting in front of the leading organic produce brands in the nation. Now's your opportunity. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we maybe should be thinking about, and just kind of give us your words of wisdom. And we'll start with you, Ron.
So I think, one, you're doing lots of wonderful things. The quality wouldn't have improved the way it has, the cost and retails wouldn't have gone down to the degree that they have without a lot of great work there. I do think there is still a lot of education to be done, and especially the online kind of education. But I think getting your message out and trying to connect, helping retailers connect to customers and helping them understand is a really important piece. Because the vehicles have changed too. One of the powers that retailers used to have, and one of the big benefits is that our ads and the things that we told customers drove what customers want to buy. That's not the case today, so it opens up a conversation for everyone involved in the industry to talk to people about organics and build that credibility and that faith and that interest in the product.
Thank you. Randy?
Yeah, Tanya, so when it comes to Kroger, we are a fact-based company. We are tirelessly focused on the customer, their behavior, and their insight. So the challenge to the group here is knowing that. How do we work together differently and faster than we ever have in the past? When you think about the history of this relationship, retailer and supplier, I think there was a point in time where it used to take 10 years to get anything done. Yeah, I think my message is, how do we work differently than we have in the past? The landscape is changing rapidly. There's new players in town, and it all starts with the conversation, talking about each other's objectives and merging them together.
Thank you. Roger?
I would encourage you to continue to innovate. That's what has gotten us where we are today. Innovation, whether that be in the products, whether that be in packaging, conveniences, whatever, flavor, continue to innovate. It'd be my number one request. And then probably the second thing is help me and help all of us really is getting your product through our registers. With labor the way it is, we all have the same issues really. They're just a little bit different in different space. But helping, get your products identified and at the front end for us and get it through the register so then we can continue to buy more and all make money together. But and then again, I'll just say don't lose sight of flavor and the quality and the great work that you've done through the years.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and bring the lights up, and we're going to have 3 people in the audience roving to get some questions. And so you'll raise your hands or stand, and we would love to hear from you. Now's the chance to talk to 3 leading people in the industry before we go to our fabulous lunch. So question? Come on. Okay, I see one over here. Jess.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You all have talked a little bit about this, but we all know that shoppers and consumers are really looking at brands, looking at transparency, looking at brand stories and values and connecting with that. You've talked a little bit about millennial moms. We know that that's something that they're looking for. How do we as grower shippers work better with the retailers in telling our brand story, but at the same time knowing that, especially with 2 of you guys up here, you have a store brand that you're pushing as well. So how do we balance that, and how do we do a better job with you guys with telling brand stories?
Thank you.
I would just say that it's critical, I think, for grower shippers to realize that it's not either or. The success comes from both. So I think you have to be willing to support our in-house brands. We're very excited about Market Side, the purple organic labels we have, and our customers are telling us it helps them do lots of things. But we always say that Walmart was a brand company, that we succeeded by showing the value of brands when you shopped with us. So both are important to us as retailers. I think both are important to the customers. And I think both are critical to putting together the kind of transportation and logistics system that works. So I'd say don't forget that it's both. It's not a choice.
Yeah, I mirror his thoughts. I think both of them work, again, in concert with one another. You think about Simple Truth, and we're very proud of that brand. It's $2 billion in sales. But we're also seeing growth in the national brands that complement or are the same items. So the two work in concert, and I think you have to build strategies in order to achieve that. Knowing that there's certain commodities that may work independently different than others, but I think you can still build strategies around that.
It's a very complex question. And at Meijer, we do have True Goodness, which is our brand for organic. But how you balance your branding message with the strong branding and trust that we have in the community, putting those together can be done, but it's a real delicate balance because we do have that relationship one-on-one with the customer. And if it's great product that's in there, the reality of it is, regardless of the brand, they're going to give you and us both credit for great product. But if, say, the product in that bag is not so good, they're going to hold us accountable. And so it is as a retail community. So it's a tricky little balance.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Anthony Tata with Fresh Experts Consulting. Appreciate everything that you've shared today. You touched on segregation versus integration in your departments, and speaking on behalf of the producers that want the consumer to have the best taste and texture experience. As we've matured in the mainstream retail grocery industry, we've struggled with keeping the commodities in the proper temperature zones so that we don't destroy the taste and texture. So I appreciated Roger's answer, separation and integration. Could you expand a little bit on what you have done, are doing, or may be looking at doing to preserve the integrity of the product at retail?
I'll touch on that, and it's already a good foundation of what we're doing at Meijer, and we'll continue to expand on it, but it is exactly what you touched on. You can't solve all the issues with temperature and so forth with one section. At least we haven't figured that out yet. And so putting the product into their proper temperature zones, making sure that we can keep the right moisture levels, And that's why we are going down the path of the integrated segregation, but also making it very more customer centric. We certainly want to be known and make sure the customer knows that we have organics, but at the same time, how can you lean into customer centric and let them make choices at the point where they're shopping for, whether it be salads or mushrooms or whatever it might be. And so, we're experimenting with some different things on what the best approach looks like, but it will be kind of what we're doing today is integrated segregation.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The whole debate of segregation and integration has existed for a long time. And I don't know if anybody's bold enough to say that they have the answer. I think we all have feelings and opinions on that based upon what side of the table we sit on. I think what we have to be open to is sitting down and listening to what it is that the customer wants, and then testing things, putting things in play to really see, does it resonate with them? Are they engaged in it? And we're going to fail on some attempts, and the hope is that we succeed at the end in order to scale that thing across our company.
Okay, we have a question right here.
I think what I heard him ask basically is the rising cost of doing business. How are we addressing that as retailers? And I would tell you, we understand. We understand what each and every person sitting in this room is going through today versus ever before. And the analogy I often give to folks when we have this tough conversation, because there's nothing sexy about this conversation, is we understand. And if you think about the state of California, where it's challenging to do business, we operate over 300 retail locations. We have 2 manufacturing facilities and 2 distribution centers. So we totally understand the challenges that you're going through. I think what we have to do is, again, I've said this a couple times today, is sit down at the table and find ways to mitigate those cost challenges. And that comes with tough conversations, sometimes conversations that none of us want to have. But if we have an end result that's desirable for both of us, I think it's worth having all that versus the typical conversation of, I've got to raise my cost or I've got to raise my retail, because we're just competing in a different environment today.
Yeah, I think you're right on. It has to be more open dialogue, very transparent conversations and direct conversations. And I'll just put this out there too, is challenge us. At least, you can challenge me, you can challenge my team on, if we're doing things or asking for things that are driving your costs, then challenge us on that, because we all want the lowest cost of goods, because we all want to sell more product. Sometimes we don't know the ramifications of what we might be asking for, and sometimes we may say, yes, we understand that and we want it, but I would say challenge us. Let's have that open dialogue. You don't be afraid to challenge the retail community. We want to lower costs just like you do.
I would just add that I think we all share a common customer, the people that actually shop in stores and buy the product that you grow and that we sell. And I think we all collectively have a responsibility to deliver the lowest price possible out there. So given cost increases and the things, I think that working together and trying to find ways of taking costs out, operating more efficiently, but we have to discipline ourselves with understanding that the customer controls the retail and the sales of product, not us.
Okay, we have one over here.
I was hearing some good conversation about how you'd like producers to help reinforce the branding that the market is trying to put out, and vice versa. I got to tell you, as a grower, I wish I could talk to someone at the supermarket chain and say, guess what? I would love to come into the store for 2 hours a week and talk to your customers as a farmer to the customers, because I'd like to support your brand, but I'd also like you to support our brand. And boy, look at the pool of resources you have out there as those hundreds of providers who could come in and help put a human face on the brand.
I think over the years at Walmart, we've benefited from many of our suppliers doing exactly what you say. I think the challenge for all of us sitting on this table is that we have lots of units out there, and it takes lots of people to tell the individual story. So part of our challenge is, how do we do more of that efficiently and effectively? But really, how can we find a way of scaling that kind of conversation between growers and customers that's different than necessarily having a living human being in all 4,300 of our stores across the country.
Right. So I think at that point, I think we're going to say thank you to our amazing panel discussion and get you to lunch. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.